Hello, everyone. So excited to get to spend tonight with you. I hope you guys are doing wonderful. Just going to get everything connected there and get ready to go. Well, happy Tuesday. Literally cannot believe that we are halfway through the month of August. Well, I mean, technically, I guess we're already kind of at the end. Yeah, that's super crazy. Cannot believe we're there. That is for sure. For those of you that are hopping on, welcome. We're excited to have you at the Anna Alexis Podcast tonight. We're also excited. I'm tagging a couple guests on Instagram because tonight is a really special podcast episode for me and something that it was really on my heart to do because the more I'm talking at work and the more I'm talking with friends in my industry, is that there's a lot of stuff right now kind of around mental health. And there's a lot of stuff around like, what can we do to be there for our people and showing up for them and just being a part of that with them. And one of the things that we've been talking about repeatedly is we pretty much only know about 5% of what's going on in somebody's life. And when you think about that, that's not a lot at all, like at all. And that so many of us have so much we're going through that we literally don't even really fully know. And so it's just getting a chance to get together and say, like, we're in this together. But also what I'm doing tonight is kind of like a tribute edition to where I am now, because you don't get to where you are by yourself. I know when you can be like kind of begrudgingly or have ego, you can think you did it all by yourself, but there is always a line of people that are helping you get to where you are from where you came from. And so tonight, that's what this is going to be for me, is getting a chance to go ahead and do that, because it all starts with us doing this together. And then I want you to be thinking as we're going through this episode, who are those people for you? Who are those people that you can look back, and even if it's not even something you're doing anymore, you can say like, man, that one thing changed everything for me. And there are these people along the way that reached out a hand for me when they didn't need to, they didn't have to, but they wanted to. And it changed my life in the best way. So as we talk through tonight, who is that for you? But then also on that flip side, who are you for other people? Who are those people for you that you're reaching your hand out to, that you don't need to, that you're helping move along? And so tonight I want to talk about a camp that I found in 2008, and it's called Winter's Camp. It is a leadership academy for teenagers that was started from a lady in 1985 who had a dream when she lived in Boston. She was in foster care, and she had said, like, I'm going to go to Hawaii someday. And everyone told her she's never going to do it. She'd never make it work, and all of the things. And you know what? She freaking did. And in 1985, she started this camp. And when I describe this camp to people, I've always said it as like, it's like a little Tony Robbins seminar, but for teenagers. And now more than ever, because of phones and social media, at our house, we call it like zombieing out. I think that is so important, to be able to have something that your kids or yourself that is feeding life into you, because the world is trying to tell you who you need to be, and that a lot of times isn't even who you are. And so for those of you that are joining, this is your first podcast on the Anna Alexis Podcast. We are here every Tuesday at 5 p.m. And really what this podcast is designed to do, it's designed to empower women who are kind of realizing that they kind of got off the beaten path of where they wanted to be. They don't have that direction. Maybe they lost that confidence to go out there and really go for something again. But we're doing it by looking back at the things that we've left behind and knowing that, like, even if the best version of us was in the past, that's still us, and it can come now. And also, if that best version of you is in the future, that's still you too. So what I want to do tonight, like I said, is to do this tribute to Winter's Camp, because it really is a foundational piece of what made up who I am. You know, I looked at when I was in network marketing, I was a part of a company called World Ventures, and that's a foundational piece of who I am today. You know, but tonight I wanted to just highlight a few things, because again, we don't get to where we are by ourselves. And keep thinking, who am I helping out? But also, who helped me? Who can I tell that to? You know, one of the beautiful things at camp, when I got there, they had this wall of knowledge, and we just were there this past about a month ago, because our son Cam goes to the camp. And They have this wall of knowledge that they now have like beautifully printed posters. But back in my day, we had to color them in every camp. You know, and now I miss that. You know, but they have this beautiful sign that says Keaho, and it stands for new beginnings. And I think as adults, sometimes we don't find importance in new beginnings. You know, we're so busy looking at the door that's shut that we're not even really looking at the door that could be opening. It's hard for us to move on from things that we thought were always going to be there. But for those of us that have, there are some new beginnings that turned out better than the door that was shut. You know, they have at camp, they have acronyms like for change. And so I say change happens and new growth emerges. But so many times we want our life to be different, but we ain't trying to get different. But change happens and new growth emerges. Not stay the same, do the same, get something different. It's I'm going to do the same, I'm going to get the same. They also do one around fear. And what I love about that is because most of the things that we're afraid of, they're never even going to happen. You know, and the acronym they have for that is false evidence appearing real. False evidence appearing real. And it can stop us in our tracks. It can stop us from moving forward and doing because we're scared of something that hasn't even happened. The last one I want to touch on is they say you have to get out of your comfort zone and take a risk. Again, so many of us, as we're embarking on this journey, for those of you that have tuned in since episode 1, and we talked about having that whisper, having that thing that pulls us into where we want to be, we're trying to get there by still being this person with these habits, with these thoughts, with these beliefs, with these emotions, with these actions. And even for me, I'm wanting something different, but it's so easy to want to stay the same. And you really can't have both. And so how this story all came about was I was at my freshman orientation in college back in 2007. And there was a motivational speaker there. And I was like, oh, that was so cool. He was talking about Yoga Whippy, which is an acronym for you only get out for what you put in, which again, I think every teenager and all people need to hear that. But I got done with that seminar and I was like, man, I really want to do, that's what I want to do when I grow up. I want to do what he is doing. And then I walked out and I got partway down the sidewalk out of the building. I have left the arena. And there was this little voice, that little whisper. And it was like, go back in there. And I kept walking because I was like, no, it is over. That is weird. I ain't trying to do that. So then I take a few more steps. It comes back. And I walk in there. And I look at this speaker, his name, Bill Cordes. And I think I introduced myself. And then I said, I want to do what you do someday. Cool. Awesome. Introduction of all the things. But that's all I could get out to be able to say. And I think, and he was so kind. He was so open. Here I am, probably looking like a hot mess from 3 days for volleyball practice. And instead of looking at me and seeing for who I was, I could see that he was seeing me as who I could be, the best version of myself. And he told me that if I did, I could go to this camp in Hawaii next July. So 11 months from now. And he could have looked at me and gone, man, she's a college kid. She probably doesn't have the money. So I probably shouldn't tell her about that. But he didn't. You know, there was so much of like being able to thank him and say like, man, he was shining his light and he was showing me that I had that light too. Because so many times, especially when we look at someone like they could be in competition with us, ego and fear settle in and we're telling them maybe why they shouldn't do something or why they can't do something. But he didn't do that. You know, he really embodied that winner's camp philosophy and that the team where it's like together, everyone achieves more. And if he's a light, shining a light in me, and I'm looking to shine a light, all we're doing is getting brighter, even if we're doing the same thing. And for some of you, I want you to hear that again, because so many times we look and say, Jessica, she's doing the same thing as me. I need to be better than her. No, you need to get together. We can be better. All ships rise when the tide comes in. It doesn't just like select a few. If you're in there, they all go up. And that was another thing that they talked about. They talked about synergy. And what synergy is it's the only time in the world where 1 + 1 = 3. Because if you and I are synergizing, let's say Eric, we're synergizing. I have my ideas, 1. You have your ideas, 2. And then we have our ideas, 3. So now together we're bouncing things off that we would have never thought of with our own individual thoughts. And so I tagged Bill in this because I wanted to say, Bill, let me tell you today how you changed my whole life. Because prior to that, there was always this fire in me, but it was like burning inside of me. It was like burning me alive. And I didn't know how to get it out. So I was doing dysfunctional things like cutting or piercing my wrists or other self-harm. I was just trying to burn it out in any way that I could because I didn't understand what was happening to me. And that was one of the first times that somebody looked at me and said, like, cool, you can do this. And it helped me from burning alive to just pushing that fire out instead of burning myself to the ground. The next person that I want to highlight, she is the founder of Winners Camp. I'm like a 5'10", very curvy woman, but she could like fit in my pocket, but she is a spitfire. And when she says something's going to be that way, that is just the end. And I'm sure it's always been like that for her. It is the end. And I got time to go to this camp. And you know what? I was a college student. I was making $5.25 an hour in Kansas and then had to come up with a flight to Hawaii and then pay for this camp. And I didn't have it all. And on faith, she said, if you get here, you can go to camp. And she still let me shoot my shot, even though this camp was for teenagers. I was 18 at the time. I just finished my freshman year of college, and she still let me come out. And I came back year after year after year. I brought friends. I brought my brother. 2 years ago, I got to bring my son. This year, I got to bring my niece and my son again. And there were times where I would get to facilitate at camp. And she would sit in the back and she would count every time I said or like. And I still think about that. It's probably been 10 years since I've facilitated at that camp. And every time I say or like, I'm like, oh, Delarice, oh God, but she just pushed you to want to be the best that you could. And she was coaching me like I was going to speak on bigger stages with hundreds of people or thousands of people. And you know what? I did. We did. Even back in the day, I even got a little CD, called Freebird that I got a chance to do. But there are these people that you'll meet or you'll intersect with that change the whole course of your life. And I think what's so important as we talk about this tonight is 1, thank those people, but 2, who are you showing up for in that way? Who are you being that person for? Where are you kind of shining and leading and guiding, maybe not just the next generation, but that coworker next to you or that family member, however it is? Because, when I finally did get a chance to speak on stage, I loved it at camp, and I loved it even more when I got to do it when I was a part of my last network marketing company. There was so much light that it filled me with and so much calling and power. And I want to ask you tonight, what is that for you? What are you doing that helps you feel alive? Last night I was working on a reel, which I'm like super not tech savvy. I almost need to just ask my son Cam to do it for me because I know in 5 minutes he'd create what it's taking me like an hour to do. But I could feel that light coming back. And our baby was asleep. So as you know, it was dark as hell because I was not going to wake him up. But I could feel so much light coming back into me. And so, Delarice, I want to say thank you. And I want to let you know today how much you changed my family's whole life. Like I can look at going to camp as a fundamental reason why I got into my network marketing company in 2009. And then in 2018, through that, I met my husband. I have my entire life that I can pinpoint back to this one moment of walking back into that auditorium and doing something that, quite frankly, I was so scared to do. I was so nervous to do. I was so reluctant because I didn't want to be weird. And it would have cost me my whole goddamn life if I would have just been too scared. What are you too scared to do right now that you know you need to walk back in and do? And do it like your whole goddamn life depends on it? Because it does. For every decision you don't take, there's a future that is playing itself out. And I got a hell of a lot of decisions that I'm so glad I didn't make because I didn't like where they were going. But for the ones that whisper, that pull that is aching at you, walk back in. Do what's scary. Your future self is counting on you and everybody that's there. The last person I want to highlight, his name is Alan. His name is Alan Silva. He used to help with as a shooting coach for the Lakers, I think in the 90s or 2000s. I don't mean to age you, but I met him for the first time in 2008, and he does this freaking incredible exercise workshop where you like trace out your hand, you put your goal in the middle, and then you put things like who can help, what's going to hold me back? Why do I want this? Where am I going to have my pitfalls? And we would do this year after year. And what's so cool is Cam got to do it now 2 years in a row. My brothers got to do it when they were at camp a long time ago. My niece Maya, she got a chance to do it. But what I think is so powerful is that I didn't know in 2008 or ever up until 2018 that I was ever going to have a bonus son, that I was ever going to have one that even liked basketball, which I'm going to say this when he's in college and he's got his fancy career in basketball. But when I signed him up for it, he goes, I didn't even like basketball. And I said, just play. We already signed you up. Just play one season. If you never want to play again, that's fine. Well, here we are like 5 years later and he loves it. So, to the world that's going to meet Cam someday, you are welcome. But one of the things that I think is so powerful is that he wasn't really sure if he was going to play basketball anymore. And we said that that's fine. Honor your heart. There are 9 million thousand other things to do other than just play sports. I didn't know that growing up, and I wish that I did. I had a lot of value put on me because of sports and grades, and that's one thing that I want to do different with Cam. And if for you, everything is about sports and winning and pushing, there's a time for that, but there's also just a time to be happy. And I take this small segue is because I think there's so many times as parents, you want to highlight your kids for what their career is or their grades or whatever hype they have going on. But we really need to get in a habit as this generation of parents for highlighting how kind our kids are, how happy our kids are, how alive our kids feel. And they're not just on this goddamn thing every day, zoning out, and you don't get to know each other because you're both on the couch just doing that. One of the things I love the most about Cam getting to be an only up until this year is I can say that I know him. He doesn't just live with me. He's not just my kid. I know him and he knows me. And he doesn't know like fancy mom Anna that is like, we do these things just because. He knows Anna. And that is something that is so special that we forget to show our kids who we are as people because we're so busy trying to be their parent. There's some parts they don't need to see. I mean, when I showed Cam I could rap, he did not think that was as cool as my husband did, So there are some things, that are better left unsaid, but just really get used to seeing your kids for who they are and not who you want them to be. Because if you see them for who they are, they will blow your mind. And let them. They're so freaking cool. if you just get to know them instead of the version of them you want to see, even if they are forgetful. It's okay. I tell myself it's okay. But back to Alan Silva is that every time he sees Cam the man, and I can just see that when he looks at me, he saw someone that could do anything. But when I see him see someone I love, and I see him look at him and know that he can do anything, that's so powerful. And we mistake that so much. And so I want to say, Alan, let me tell you today how you changed my son's life and how you're going to, because we're not done going to camp. You're not done. We're not done. We have many years of this shared friendship that I'm so glad we started back in 2008. And so as we wrap up tonight, I really want to say, like, who are these people for you? Do they know they are these people for you? Do they know that? Because a lot of times they don't. We think they know, especially in the older generations, even with like dads, where it's like, it didn't happen maybe probably more my grandparents' generation of like, they didn't talk about how much they loved each other. It's like, I put a roof over your head and I fed you. That meant I loved you. We're not in that era anymore. Reach out, say something, connect. Because again, we are only seeing about 5% of everybody's whole universe that they have going on inside of them. And it would make their day to know how much their impact has meant to you. But then on the other side, what is your impact? What's your ripple effect? Is it good? Is it healthy? Is it trauma, toxic? Is it going to cause generational pain? Is your ego and your need to be right going to create a story down the line in a future that you don't want to be a part of? Or even if you're not perfect, are you giving it your best? And your kids and your spouse and your friends and your family, they see that. Are we creating a good and healthy generational, I wouldn't say curse. What's the opposite of a curse? I don't even know. But what are we creating? Because it doesn't just end with you. It ripples like when you drop a stone in the water. And it goes a lot further than you think. And you have to remember that this is so much bigger than you. When you get to be a chain breaker, you get to say, this ends here. This trauma, this pain, this anger, this ego, this ends here. But now it's your time to rise up. It's your time to say, what are we creating? Where are we going? How can we do it together? And you can be a chain breaker and you can say, this begins here with you tonight. I love you guys. Have such a great night, and we will see you next Tuesday.